Introducing AI SEO, Tinuiti's new generative search optimization framework built for the next era of search. From the early days of dial-up to keyboards and backlinks to early AI algorithms, Tinuiti has led at the forefront of ever-evolving SEO strategy. Today, as AI reshapes search, queries are evolving into conversations, and Tinuiti's AI SEO framework ensures your brand is a leading voice. Tinuiti's AI SEO experts can put your brand at the top of AI overviews and answer engines, improve brand sentiment in zero-click environments, enhance paid performance from organic context, and gives clear attribution via AI-specific measurements. Powered by our tech partnership with Trailblazer Profound, our AI SEO dashboard informs us how to improve your presence, where to prioritize changes, and the extent to which your brand is penetrating every search's top answer. Be where the queries are. With AI SEO by Tinuiti.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are here today because, as we all know, search is shifting at lightning speed at this point in the age of AI. And our Tinuiti experts are here to show you how to stay visible, stay relevant, and avoid getting left behind. So before we jump in, let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat. I'm Catherine, Marketing Program Manager at Tinuiti, and I am tuning in from Virginia. Looks like we have people from Miami, San Diego, New York, Pittsburgh, so welcome. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to do some housekeeping. First, everyone's favorite question is, will I get the recording and slides? Yes, we will send those to you probably like 5 minutes after the session ends. They go really quickly right after that. We'll go directly to your inbox, so you'll have those that you can go back and watch. You can share them with your colleagues. And then also, if you get disconnected at any point, you can jump back in using the same link that's in your calendar hold or the one that is in your inbox. Feel free to check out the handouts tab. We've got some great resources in there for you. You can download them directly from there. And again, that chat is open for you all to ask questions, network with one another. Don't be shy. We'd love to connect with you through there. And then finally, please participate in some of our polls. I will launch a few of those shortly, so you can toggle over from chat to polls at the top left of your screen to access those. And a little bit about Tinuiti before we dive in. Tinuiti is the largest independent full funnel marketing agency in the US across the media that matters most, and we are built for digital forward brands that want to scale with precision. We operate across commerce, search, social, streaming, TV, and creative, backed by proprietary and patent tech, and a measurement-first mindset that cuts waste and drives meaningful growth. And now that we have the housekeeping out of the way, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick things over to Simon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to join us today. If you were able to join us for the first part of this, we'll be recapping that shortly. But you probably listened to me talk for near an hour and frankly probably got a little sick of my voice. I know I did. So that's why I am joined today by two wonderful experts. For those of you, though, who haven't met me previously, my name is Simon Poulton. I'm the EVP of Innovation and Growth here. I'm joined by two leaders from our Innovation and Growth team. Of note, Michelle Merklin, who leads our paid search practice in particular. So she's been all across the paid search ecosystem, even being here at Tinuiti, being over at Google, working with the PMAX team, and now back here at Tinuiti. And then we're also joined by Jen Cornwell, who leads our AI SEO practice, and just has years of experience in this space, having led teams of 100 plus folks in the discipline of SEO, and really has been thinking about what the future is here for quite some time. I like to call it Gen AI because it's Gen AI. It's right on the nose, honestly. With that, though, I see we've already got our poll going, which is excellent. So if you haven't seen the poll, please do take a moment to vote. The question is, how confident are you in your search strategy for the next 12 months? Because we're hearing from a lot of folks about this right now. And frankly, I like to do little straw polls in rooms when I go and speak at various events. And so good. But we've got a lot of answers coming in. I think we'll give it just another few seconds here. to get a general pulse. I don't know. Well, gosh, I wish I could do statistical sampling on the fly. When I was in college, they made us do standard deviation without a calculator, which was a thrill because it takes about an hour to do one standard deviation with what you can do in Excel. So with that, we'll say 30 responses. That's a good representative sample. So across the board, we're looking at, there's just one individual that's very confident. I love that enthusiasm. There's a couple there now, but the core folks, the core of everyone is really sitting around this somewhat confident moment. And I think somewhat confident. And I think that is somewhat indicative of the industry where there has been this great moment of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that has come across where it's just, gosh, is this going to completely disrupt everything? I think the disruption is actually happening in real time. So it's hard to be supremely confident, but it is one where I feel like, we're getting up on the surfboard and we're able to ride that wave. So thank you all for voting in that poll. That is a good touch base for us. And I think it's really great to have the folks who are somewhat confident, because hopefully we'll take you from somewhat to pretty confident today while we go through our agenda. So on the deck today, we've got a few key sections we're going to talk through. I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the foundations that we shared in the first part of this of the webinar. Obviously, if you did miss that, you can go check out the recording. We've also got a number of recordings on YouTube, one where I look like a magician, so that's pretty exciting. We'll then start talking about the new search paradigm, which is governed not just by the user interfaces that we now have, and I think that's a really key term, is shifting from surfaces to interfaces, but actually the behavioral shifts, because fundamentally, if you build it, will they come? We don't know, but if humans are changing the way that we interact with these systems, absolutely, that will then change the way that we have to embrace advertising and organic presence within this new paradigm. And of course, not just isolating, is this a problem or is this a challenge? I think that's pretty well known, but how do we actually tackle this? And so today we're really getting into the meat of the subject and looking into some of the really key components there, and then talking a little bit about measurement before having some time for a live Q&A. So if you do have questions, do be sure, put them in the chat all throughout today's presentation. We'll make sure to get to those at the end. And if we don't get to them, then we'll absolutely plan to take some time and follow up with them, maybe like a little video series or something after. So with that, let's just go ahead and touch on some of the key themes from our previous presentation. We know that zero-click search is becoming the norm. I've been calling it the zero place. It is that top result, but we know that, almost 60%, or if not more, of searches are resulting in no-click activity at all. Is this a bad thing? Not entirely. That was one of our contrarian takes from last time. But AI overviews are becoming increasingly common, especially for those informational queries. One of the key signals that we're seeing here is that these are highly related to increased query length. So the more words that you have within a query or a prompt, the more likely you are to generate those AI overviews. And it's been interesting to watch how some people are trying to generate them by putting plus AI or just adding a question mark. And also some folks are maybe pushing back against it and not wanting to see that so much. Ads are being influenced by AI-generated summaries. That is something that we're going to be talking about a lot more today. This was a theory, now it is a fact. So that is something that I'm really excited for Michelle to dive into. And of course, that search is far more diversified than just being within the Google ecosystem. It's on social. It's on, it's on micro, it's on Bing, but it's beyond that. It is every ecosystem has a degree of discovery built into it, and that is a really big moment to take note of. Finally, or just looking ahead, we talked about the shifting KPI expectations associated with what you should be looking to measure within the scope of AI SEO, and then the way that we're thinking about the influence of agents. And then finally, what our approach was to AI SEO. And frankly, that has evolved quite a lot. This is something that is ongoing. It is literally in flight as we are talking through this. So I'm going to, like I said at the top, I'm sure you're sick of hearing my voice. So I'm actually going to pass to the actual experts right now. And I'm going to go ahead and pass over to Michelle.
Great. Thanks, Simon. Hi, everyone. Great. I don't actually see any of you, but I know you're there, and I'm so glad to be in this virtual room with you today. So as we know, changes are happening fast in the search space these days. In the last few months, since the last time we chatted, there have been some new studies and a lot of developments that are just continuing to reshape both how people are actually going about searching for information, as well, and maybe perhaps more importantly, it's reshaping what people are expecting from search results. So we can move forward. Here we go. So the first trend I want to talk about is just the continued diversification of where people are searching. So I'm a realist, and I want to start by grounding us in the fact that Google is still undeniably the dominant force here. The vast majority of the general population is still turning to Google to find information online. But this recent report from eMarketer, which is up on the screen, asked people which platforms they used to search in the last 12 months. And people had more than one answer, unsurprisingly. That means they're using Google, yes, but they're also searching on social platforms like Facebook and Instagram. And they're searching on video platforms like YouTube and TikTok. And they're searching on Gen AI platforms like ChatGPT. What's interesting here is that, at least as of March, a large percent of people said that they were using social platforms to search. And actually, that's an even larger percentage than people who were using ChatGPT at the time. But again, things are changing quickly. This eMarketer data, as I mentioned, it was published in July, but it's referencing a study from March, which to me already feels like an eternity ago, given the speed of the developments that are happening in search over the last year. One of those developments, as we know, is the launch of AI mode. We talked about this a bit last time, but there are big shifts like this happening, really kind of monumental, quite frankly. For anyone who maybe has been under a rock and who isn't familiar with AI mode, what AI mode is, it's like a super smart friend that lives in your search bar, and it doesn't just like give you links, it gives you a full conversation. It gives you, you can ask questions, you can like clarify things. AI mode is just a much more advanced version of Google search. So it seems so far that in the early days of AI mode, we're still very new here. It's very nascent. So far, some third-party research has shown that adoption of AI mode has been, slow and experimental. Again, very early stages here. The people who are using it are most likely people, a lot of the folks in this room, marketers, tinkerers, early adopters. Something that surprised me in this data, it was showing that 50% of people who tried AI mode in those first few months, they used it once, but then they didn't actually return. And that tells me that people are still figuring this thing out. They're not quite sure what to use AI mode for yet. But it's here. Google is placing AI mode front and center. In recent weeks, we started to notice that Google added the AI mode search button directly on the homepage of google.com. To me, that feels like a pretty clear indicator that Google is focusing energy on increasing adoption as well as improving capabilities of this tool. We actually have a working theory here at Tinuiti that Google's AI overviews may actually be going away at some point and could eventually be fully replaced by this more advanced AI mode search experience. Only time will tell, but we will see. But for now, as consumers are tinkering with all these new different ways of searching, it's clear that they have different expectations of these various search platforms. For example, we're seeing people are asking more complex questions to ChatGPT compared to traditional search or even AI mode. This research from SimilarWeb here is showing that people are typing an average of 70 words per search query when they use ChatGPT, and that's compared to only 3 or 4 words on average when they're using Google. Jen, why do you think that is?
It's really interesting. I think consumers are understanding what being conversational with each of these platforms means. So are they being rewarded? Are we seeing the shift in user behavior because they're being rewarded with more context when they give more context? So when they give more context in their initial query, when there's other modifiers in there, thing they would not necessarily usually put into a traditional search engine, they're maybe being rewarded with a longer form answer. So this as an example, on traditional search on the left, it's blue links. You're doing all the work as the user to go and figure out the answer. But on the right, we have AI mode, we have ChatGPT, both really similar formats that are looking at how it can put out the best answer for you and the most complete answer. So when you look for things like golf bags in traditional search, but you make it more specific in AI mode, like for beginners or as a gift, you get different answers because of the context that's been provided. So I think users are going to start to adopt, that's our prediction. They'll start to adopt some of these modes and models once they learn how they work and they start to get rewarded with more complete personalized answers. The other thing we're seeing really shift is intent type for search. So traditional intent types, if you're not familiar, were transactional, commercial, navigational, and informational. So they fall down the funnel to some degree, but what we're seeing with the shift over to ChatGPT or the other LLMs, ChatGPT specifically, the study came from Profound, 37% of all ChatGPT interactions are generative. Generative is this new bucket where instead of saying, how do I write an email? It says, write me the email. So you're actually asking it to do work and do things for you. I think generative is where we're seeing this new experience, this new space for brands to play in. Michelle, are you seeing any sort of trends on the paid search side related to query change? Oh, you're muted, Michelle. Oh, good.
There we go. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. To answer your question, Jen, yes, I think we're in a really cool moment right now where our brains as consumers are actively being like retrained almost to expect something different, even from traditional search engines like Google. So what we're seeing, especially on the advertiser side, there's this shift in query length, like Simon was mentioning earlier. So what does that mean? Why does that matter? Traditionally, a main use case for Google was people going to Google and searching for one or two words, basically telling Google something like, I know I want to go to a specific website. I just don't know the right URL. Google, give me the URL. I'll click it and I'll go. In marketers' terms, we would call those navigational searches. While that's still a prominent use case for Google, we're seeing this behavioral shift right now. People are moving away from using Google purely for those navigational searches, and they're now expecting Google to provide accurate answers for more of these discovery-based searches. They're typing in 3-4 words per query now, rather than just 1 or 2 words like they used to. So, for example, rather than just searching for something like North Face jackets, they may be searching for something that's more inspiring, searching for something like lightweight, waterproof jackets for hiking. All this suggests that the way that people are typing now and searching is a lot more natural, much more natural language. And their exact search queries, therefore, are a lot harder to predict. So, as we know, ads have long been part of Google's search results page. And hey, I am personally grateful for that. It's why I have a job. But lately, what we're seeing is ads are serving in this new space. They're above, they're below, they're sometimes even within these AI-generated summaries from AI overviews and from AI mode. And this is an important moment to recognize for advertisers. Because as we know, most of the time, LLMs are really smart. They get it right. It feels like magic. But that's not always the case, right? As we are moving more and more toward this AI-generated search experience and just expectation, there can be a disconnect between accuracy and trust. And I think it's more important than ever for advertisers to understand where and how their ads are serving. And there's a major push right now from a lot of folks in the industry for more transparency from Google about this, to provide information to advertisers about where their ads are serving, what's triggering them when they're serving next to these AI-generated responses. Because right now, that reporting really just frankly doesn't exist.
So the other thing we want to call out is video specifically, but ultimately what we want to look at here is how the platforms are shifting. So for YouTube, what we saw a couple of weeks ago was this increase in citations across a handful of topics. Seeing that, being able to dig into which platform was it specifically, this was looking at AI overviews, AI mode, and Perplexity. We saw this increase in how frequently it was including YouTube as a cited source. I think understanding what those shifts look like within a platform and then within your own topic is incredibly important now, because they're all weighted differently based on the topic ecosystem that your brand is trying to live within. So I think that looking at LLMs as a new platform, the way we used to look at algorithms inside of Google search engine, is really critical in understanding how search works and where your brand fits. And to that, what do we do? How do we start to understand what opportunity looks like? How do we break down strategy, and how do we understand optimization? So really understanding how LLM search works ultimately. I really prefer a metaphor sometimes for harder concepts. So what I put together is the story of the Magic Library. So bear with me while I tell you this short story very publicly. But the Magic Library, we think about search as a library. We have traditional search on the left. The librarian, who is our search engine in this instance, hands you a stack of books. It says, here's all these books you can read. Go find the answer yourself. On the right, we have AI search, which is the librarian putting together a complete passage or a paragraph or a page that's a complete list or a complete answer to give back to that user. And yes, it has cited sources and it has other information, but there's much less work for the user to do ultimately. So how does that influence and change the way people understand your brand or your product or a particular topic? So in our example, getting into our story, Lily has visited the Magic Library. And Lily goes to Leo the librarian, and Lily says, why is the sky blue? That is Lily's question. Lily asks the librarian, and the question turns blue. The question turns sparkly blue, and the librarian says, let's go look around for a book that has the exact same feeling as what we're seeing here. So in the library, all of the books have their own colored glows. They all are organized by feeling. The glows are representative of the content itself. It's representative of the feeling of the content, the meaning of the content, not just the actual text. So Leo starts to look through, and he looks through some books, and he finds a book that has a little bit about everything, but it's not glowing quite enough of the bright blue color that we're looking for to answer Lily's question. So he needs to keep searching for some other answer. He calls for some help to his sparrows, these librarian sparrows, that come down, they look at the blue color, and they say, okay, what are other questions that we could go look for that maybe will glow a similar color blue that would help answer Lily's question? So what makes the air look blue? Tell me about sunshine and colors. What are all of those related things to what Lily is asking for that we could go and find? And they come back to the librarian, and the librarian has found a book. The sparrows have come in with their answers, and they say, here's some more information that we could put together so we can give Lily the most complete answer based on feelings and findings. So Leo the librarian gets to read Lily her answer on why the sky is blue, and it includes information about how light works and how that shifts through air and how that changes colors, and more things for Lily to be able to understand why the sky is blue. So we're going back, shifting back into real life. Thank you for sitting through my short story. Semantic search is what we're talking about ultimately. Semantic search is this understanding the shift from queries over to meaning and feeling and not just keywords. So how do we start to match, and the librarian being the LLM in this case is asking, do these concepts align? Are these about the same topic? In traditional search, you'd map to a query and Google looks for those exact words, gives you a list of links and does word matching. LLMs are doing context matching or semantic matching. And the way that they do that is with vector embeddings and cosine similarity. So the question, Lily's why is the sky blue, is turned into a vector. And the content that the LLM has in its library, the librarian is very familiar with, is also a set of vectors. And the way to think about vector embeddings is this unique glow, right? It's a unique fingerprint that really captures the meaning, the relationships, and the context of what exists within a passage or a set of words. The system is then operating on cosine similarity, which is let me go find things that glow in the exact same color as this original question. So how closely can we match a user's question or a query like why is the sky blue to content inside of the library to understand what our content looks like, how it's structured, how well it aligns with the questions that our users are asking. It also uses a method, two methods, passage optimization and query fan out. So in the library, the librarians have read through every book. They understand all of the content. They've actually gone into the books and they've placed sticky notes that have their own glow. So at the passage level, we're able to understand what that passage is exactly about. So when our query fan out birds, our sparrows in the library, go out and start to farm for those other questions. That's what they're looking for as well, is what are those individual passages that start to really answer our user's question or those related questions that we think will make the most complete answer. So question is, how do you make your brand's book the brightest? So we're thinking about contextually complete content. What does that mean? It means having topical authority. It means understanding what are all of those different questions that people are going to be asking, and am I answering them in a complete way, maybe in a unique way from my brand's perspective. Being able to use cosine similarity, that is something you can actively do. And Screaming Frog, actually, if there's any Screaming Frog users here, they have built in a feature that makes this really, really simple and easy to do now. So you can go start to compare some of those cosine similarity measurements and understand how well your content is optimized with what we're starting to refer to as the science of content. SEO has always kind of been best practices and tested and tried methods, but there really is a science to how we can better optimize content to match with topical authority, user needs. Breaking your content into clear passages and thinking about what structure of your page looks like. Is it clear? Is it concise? LLMs really prefer when you're very specific, like an FAQ, where there's a question and an answer format. And then finally, citations. LLMs have sort of driven this like resurgence in digital PR and what it means in the SEO space. It's much less focused on backlink quantity and much less focused on the link in general, a lot more focused on the mention itself and the places where you are being included and how much the LLM potentially weights that as a cited source. So thinking about how can you make your book stand out so that the librarian constantly refers to you, whether it's as a cited source, whether it's grabbing answers from the book that you've created. What does that mean for your brand? And what does that mean for your part of the library, right? That's the other thing. Library is very vast. How do you fit into specific topics in your space? So talking a little bit more about KPIs. With this shift in user behaviors, moving into a zero-click world where people are not getting that list of books to go read, they do get that passage, and there is no actual traffic to your library. How do we start to measure what is happening in the organic space? So really critical to start thinking about what SEO KPIs actual matter. Visibility and sentiment, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but are you included in the answers? And what is the LLM? What is the librarian saying about you when it talks about you? What are the themes that are commonly associated with your brand? What are the prompts and what are the prompts within each platform? What are the prompts that make the most sense for your business? And then what are happening within each of the platform environments that is potentially impacting what's happening with your brand? And then citations. What are the sources driving AI mentions of your brand? So is that your own website? Is that affiliate sites? Is that user-generated content? What does that mean within your topic ecosystem? And then finally, benchmarking. Benchmarking is a great way to understand where you sit, but it's also a great way to measure how the platforms are shifting and changing with how they interact with the search. So we can look a little bit at what brand inclusion looks like. So really understanding where does your brand sit and what does it look like within a platform. You can also take a look at this by topic to really understand where the gaps are and start to reverse engineer what's happening within each of the platforms and what they care about within a specific topic set. And then sentiment, I think is really interesting because you can pull some of these themes and start to think about how you include this in a larger content strategy or a PR strategy. An anecdotal example here, we had a client who had lower visibility for high efficiency electronics, but their sentiment for energy efficiency is actually very positive. So it's just not something that's represented well in their brand where the LLM understands it. So how do we start to integrate that into a PDP strategy where all of the product pages always mention energy efficiency? Where else can we include it in their website, in an offsite strategy, so that we can start to create more brand visibility there, knowing that there's positive sentiment with their users already? And then the last piece is really just thinking about how this starts to influence paid ads, when those start to happen. So we know from documentation from Google that both the user query as well as the content of an AI mode response will help determine which ads to be served. within AI mode specifically. And we have some theories and predictions on maybe what that looks like in other platforms, but we know that that is specifically happening for Google. So understanding what is happening in that organic conversation so that you can have more understanding of what's going to be happening on the ad side when that does roll out, and get a better idea of what performance is going to look like. So really thinking about all of the insights that you can pull from any LLM measurement platform or about your brand specifically, so you can put together interventions that ultimately lead for topic authority. Understanding your larger topic ecosystem and all of the things that make it up, whether it's televisions or skincare or makeup or home service space, it's all different based on the industry and the vertical that you're in. So it's really critical to understand what's actually happening within the topic and what your LLMs care about. And so I will, because of the impact of brand authority, it's really important to start to think about holistic search strategy. We talk about that a lot in traditional search, but the way organic and paid are playing together now is really different. So Michelle, if you want to walk us through what we need to consider for paid media.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as Jen mentioned, the content that's organic, that's being pulled through these AI generated answers, it's actively influencing what appears in ads. We know that now. It's no longer a theory, it's a fact, like Simon mentioned at the top of the call. So paid and organic search strategies can no longer be decoupled. We cannot think about these in separate silos. There needs to be this synergy. As much as I hate that word synergy, it's really critical at the moment. It's really critical also that landing page content on a brand site is best in class and high quality. And while this does not sound like rocket science, this does not sound like necessarily new guidance, why is this so much more important now than ever? Well, we know that paid search tactics rely on landing page content as a signal, among other signals. For example, broad match keywords and keyword list targeting that's used in Performance Max and in the new AI Max settings. All of these things look at landing page content to understand which search queries are relevant and which ad copy makes sense to serve in that search result. In the early days of Google's new AI Max offering, which was rolled out really just a few months ago, we're already seeing examples of this important connection between paid and organic. As you can see on the screen, things like automatically created ad headlines from AI Max are sometimes pulling from organic blog content. Those blog post titles are appearing directly in the ad headline itself. As you can imagine, this could be a great thing or a not so great thing, depending on how well your website content is optimized. So how do we stay in control here? Despite the grabby headlines you may see about the black box and the loss of control, the good news is that advertisers do still have some tools in our tool belt here. For example, we can tell Google which parts of our site to pull from for ads, as well as which parts of our site to completely ignore. There are solutions called URL inclusions and exclusion lists that we can do this type of strategy with. Like so many other things, it really comes down to just controlling the controllables. So in that same vein, I always like to remind myself that at the end of the day, no matter which fancy campaign settings and targeting controls we may have in place, the actual human being behind the keyboard who's doing the search is only going to see the ad, the text, maybe the images and the links. That's it. In other words, our creative assets are what will make or break our opportunity to turn searchers into consumers. And we've been discussing this already, Google now considers both the user's query as well as the content of those AI summaries when it's deciding which ad copy to show. That fact, coupled with the fact that people are searching in more unpredictable ways than ever these days, it means advertisers need to be prepared with relevant ad copy, and lots of it. I'm talking literally potentially thousands of iterations of headlines and description combos that will get across the most compelling message at the right moment. So how do we come up with those thousands of headlines and descriptions? And more importantly, how do we make sure that they're on brand for our advertisers and still relevant? Well, that's where our new solution, Copy Tiger, comes in. Tinuiti has been hard at work on a collaborative project here building with Google. we're testing a custom solution that creates high quality text ad copy at large scales. Copy Tiger uses a combination of generative AI through Google's Gemini technology, plus a human in the loop intervention with specific inputs and a review process. And what this does is it generates high quality text assets that fit within your brand guidelines. Copy Tiger learns from your existing high performing text assets, and it can create hundreds of new headlines and descriptions in minutes. Then we can use those assets in your paid search and performance max campaigns to improve performance and to prevent things like creative fatigue. So we've done some early testing with this already. In these early tests, we've seen that Copy Tiger assets are driving really impressive results, including things like a lift in click-through rate and a stronger return on investment compared to evergreen ad copy that's been running all along. So we're really bullish on the potential of Copy Tiger, and we're really excited to roll out a proprietary solution to all of our paid search customers a little bit later this year.
Absolutely. Well, we've got still a lot of time left to go through questions and discussion here. I think the interesting thing about Copy Tiger and the way that we're thinking about the iteration here is one of the core, or one of the fundamental thought process I have here. And by the way, my background before I came to my current role was management. I led a data science team for over a decade. And the thought around machine learning is this. I think that oftentimes there's this deceptive thought where we go, we should just do these really little small iterations. We should change one word here, one word there. That, while it seems somewhat logical to us, because frankly, you minimize the risk or the downside, it's actually a little bit illogical when you're thinking about how are you influencing the LLMs, how are you influencing the machine learning that's happening within Google. That is exactly why we look at solutions like Copy Tiger, not just to create a mass number of permutations for context matching, but also, frankly, to push everyone a little bit outside their comfort zone, because the way that we think about the future is one where step change is what is likely to yield the greatest results. And if you're able to go through a high velocity testing approach, that really is where the greatest yield is going to come from, especially in this, what I would call a highly turbulent era for Google. Google really needs to figure out how ads and AI mode are going to work. We know what they've said. We know what it looks like. Michelle just shared some of those core examples. The question ultimately is going to be, will those ads monetize at the same level as what we see in the traditional SERP? Because that is what Google has to bet the farm on. And if they do, then this is the greatest opportunity for the land grab for advertisers that we've seen in years, because folks won't have figured this out. And this is exactly how we see the future. So as we think about this, there are a few key takeaways I'd love for everyone to keep in mind that really summarize some of the core topics of conversation today. So the first one is that organic leads paid. The idea here historically has always been, look, there's a bit of a church and state difference between these things, and maybe there's a bit of a gestalt effect when you have your ad is in the ad in first position, organic in first position, you'll see a higher click-through rate than the sum of the parts. But in this particular moment, it's not even about click-through rates so much as it is about, is that ad even relevant? And that relevance is determined by the organic response, not just about your brand, but about the weights and biases in a decision-making process. So, I had to buy a new microwave recently. That decision-making process, I don't know how to decide how to buy a new microwave. I want something that's aesthetically pleasing, and that's about as far as my knowledge goes. So to calibrate that, I asked Gemini, what should I do here? What do I need to, you need to look at the transformer quality. You need to look at all these things that are now weighing my decision. The second thing, the second key takeaway here is about the science of influence. And this is something that Jen mentioned earlier, the science of content, the science of relevance. All too often, we have distilled SEO best practices into somewhat of a black box. And frankly, it's largely because of this latency challenge, right? If you make an intervention today, when do you see that effect? This is true across all marketing, but in the performance marketing era, we've taken paid search and we said, we can actually see effects much, much faster. That's still not true within the world of SEO. And it's one where we need to, that we now have the components or the ingredients to make this a science. When we talk about cosine similarity, that is, for anyone who is a trigonometry enthusiast like I am, that is actually talking about the angle, the relevance score of that content. How close is that angle of the answer to that prompt? Is this page going to be relevant to this prompt? And therefore, is it likely to be cited within the SERP? And then finally, going beyond the SERP. And this is where we think about going where your audience is and what they're saying to your brand and about your brand. I think this is such an interesting moment in terms of what we'll call the opinionated LLM and the nature of how those opinions are going to be formed. Historically, especially when we've talked about things like reputation management, those have been more of a suppression play, suppress the bad results. Well, now it's one of owning those results, but owning them outside of just being on the SERP, thinking about how your brand's interacting on social, thinking about how you're interacting on Reddit. And frankly, I think this is a reckoning moment for brands to go, we may need to handle some customer service in public, because otherwise that answer will never get an answer, and we'll just have folks who are shouting us down at that moment, and that is not a positive thing, because that's what gets included in the generative responses. Well, with that little monologue, we are now excited to open the floor to questions. We've had a lot of questions come through, so I'm going to go ahead and try and start at the top, and as we direct through. One question that actually had emailed to me in advance of this. So if the person who asked this on, hopefully you're hearing this, but I've been asked this by a number of folks. That is, can I influence what LLMs are saying about my brand by interacting with them directly? And so, Jen, why don't you jump on that one?
No. There are too many. So we talk about these topic ecosystems. There are too many other sources out there where it can go find information and reference information about you. So Simon mentioned Reddit. That is super common for a lot of topic ecosystems, where the conversations about your brand or the experiences where your brand is included, as simple as, has anyone ever done this before? And then the comment is like, well, we did it this one time with this company, and it was not so great. It was just okay. Here's why. That is what starts to show up in your sentiment score. So I think there are too many things, and there's this element of personalization inside of all of these LLMs. So maybe it shifts some things for you specifically, but you don't necessarily know that it's shifting what the narrative looks like for everybody else in every other platform.
I think that's a really interesting note, in that it will appear that it is changing. And that is one of those emails that I do get where I've said the exact, what you just shared, I've shared that with folks and they go, you're wrong, Simon. It is changing. I'm like, I know, just for you. And it's an interesting little moment when we talk about the degree of hyper-personalization here, because I recently took a picture of my kid's toy room, and I went to ChatGPT and I was like, do the home decor thing. And it put all the shelves in it, and then it gave me 5 links and said, by the way, these are some products at Ashley Furniture that you might be interested in. And I was like, why are you giving me Ashley Furniture links? And it was, I asked it, and he said, well, because you shopped there 6 months ago. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. That is a highly personalized result just to me, but to the average individual, they may not ask that follow-up question, right? They're just like, oh, Ashley Furniture, they're getting cited a lot, and they've got great products, awesome. But that is an interesting moment when we think about that brand build moment to actually influence that in terms of what consumers will be asking about, what brands they're saying they've got a preference for, so that they will be showing up.
The other thing I think is relevant is, maybe that's true for ChatGPT, but what about Perplexity and the people using that? What about AI mode? I think right now a lot of people have a selected platform. I think in marketing, right, you're like, well, I like it for this this thing and this one for this other thing, but average user isn't going to have multiple subscriptions. They're going to pick one platform and probably stick with it. So how do you know what's happening for your brand across everything if you're so focused on one?
Yes, and this will be particularly salient probably in the MCP era, where everyone just has their own agent. We'll call it Agent X, that we interact with, and that will have access to all the models on all the platforms, and they'll sort of self-define which model they'll be using to respond, which that's going to be a whole nother discussion. All right, I've got a second question, and this is a more philosophical one. I think both of you can jump in if you'd like. And the question is, will Gen AI decrease analytical and creative skills? It's a two-parter. So the first one is, will it decrease analytical and creative skills, yes or no? And then I'll follow up with the next part.
I can go first, Michelle. I think it has this opportunity to actually enhance versus detract from a skills perspective. I mean, and this is anecdotal, but I use it so much for learning and understanding concepts better. The library metaphor, I mean, I will take credit for selecting it and fleshing it out a little bit, but that was fully me going into ChatGPT and trying to understand something better and figure out how to explain it. So I think from a creative perspective, how you're using it is really going to determine that. And there's a big opportunity to use it as a brainstorm partner, which would potentially make your skills better.
Excellent. Well, that actually sort of answers the second part of it as well, which was how do we use AI to enhance knowledge and problem-solving skills? So the answer is, it will not decrease. In fact, it may enhance. It's just a different medium to do so. Michelle, your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually think there's an interesting combination of the analytical and creative mindsets that are going to have to come together to make the quality creative still being the outputs of LLM. So what I mean by that is, yes, you can ask ChatGPT to design your kid's bedroom for you and show you where to put the shelves. But if you don't have your own human brain that layers on top of that, like, oh no, actually that shelf wouldn't fit there, or oh no, this book is completely like not even appropriate for my kid or something. You need to have the human on top and the human in the loop element. And I think that's where we're going to continue to see, relevance for people like marketers who have to add that additional context that the LLMs may just never quite get smart enough to bring.
Yes, and for those who watch South Park, there was a particularly salient South Park episode literally last night about an over-reliance on ChatGPT and frankly an over-confidence that can be instilled if you blindly listen to the LLMs in that regard. But that's certainly more of a task-based function than a discovery-based function. Alrighty, so moving on to the next question. And this is, we talked about Profound a bit, but how do we figure out what LLMs are saying about your brand? And so maybe, Jen, you can just speak briefly to the methodology here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have partnered with Profound. We are measuring and tracking what ultimately is a set of topics. And then what we're really doing is measuring where a particular brand sits within what I have been calling the topic ecosystem. So what are the most relevant prompts inside of a topic? What are the ones that we believe will lead to brand discovery or discovery searches? And then how frequently is your brand being included? When it is included, does it recommend it or not? That's where that sentiment comes into play. And then citations is what other sources it's citing. I would say we've gone with Profound because it lets you get incredibly granular. They also, shout out to them, have been developing their platform at rapid speed. I, took a little time off and came back, and there were like 100 new features that I could go and take a look at, and new data they were tracking. Like, they're constantly bringing that information in. But yeah, they have some competitors in the space. I think Scrunch AI is one that I've seen, Hall. And then we have our bigger sort of SEO tools who've been around forever, SEMrush, rolling out their own AI overview platform. Ahrefs I'm less familiar with, but know they have one. And Moz from the Stat team also starting to look at it. So I think it is like a fun, it's interesting because they all have this different take on the data just from demoing them so frequently. They are all really focused on the same 3 KPIs, but the way they visualize it, or the way that they source the data, or the information maybe they already have, like an SEMrush, and how that integrates into some of the system they put together for LLM monitoring. I don't know that we'll have like a clear winner for a while because of just how rapidly everything's shifting.
Absolutely. I think we're in this high velocity mode, and I also think it's going to be particularly interesting as the ad experience starts to become a bigger piece of this ecosystem for us to better understand what ad interactions are happening in addition or in combination. Although that's really, look, it's a Google thing, but Google's still 90% of this. Ahrefs, I think they launched a new website yesterday, maybe it was Ahrefs, where it was ChatGPT versus google.com, which, wild URL. Where they essentially are looking at the referral traffic from both of them. And I believe 40% of the LLM traffic is coming from Google, and ChatGPT was 0.2. It's not even in the same ballpark in terms of the traffic sources or the organic traffic sources that are coming from either of them. Right now, it really is still Google leading the way there. Awesome. So we had another. Okay, this is a good one. Those KPIs that you were talking about before, when we were talking about sentiment and on that slide earlier. How do you suggest we have those conversations with the C-suite, and how would you be looking to bring these kind of KPIs into those discussions, knowing that, frankly, that's where the investment decision is going to get made, and if you are moving away from that deterministic signal of a click that we've always used for so long, how do you have that conversation?
Yeah, I think that's where layering in the topics becomes very relevant. So if there's a particular category that really matters to your brand, if you zoom out, it feels like you're trying to boil the ocean. I think that's true with like traditional SEO as well. If anyone's ever seen an SEMrush audit and it's like a mile long and it's like, what is important, what really matters, you wouldn't send that over to a C-level either. So what specifically is happening within a topic set? Maybe not getting as granular as a platform, but thinking about, are we being included? How robust are we from a topic perspective? I think bringing in some other research and data sets to sort of understand what that looks like. To Simon's point, there's still opportunity in traditional search for some brands. So what does that look like on the organic side? Do you align that with the AI side as well? And then you start to speak to your C-level about how we're performing for particular topics, and then maybe within a platform. I think that is the most tangible and easy to understand, is we want to create visibility for product, and this is what that looks like based on our authority within a topic. And that is where you start doing your inclusion and sentiment and visibility metrics.
And I think it's particularly interesting when we think about clicks in this regard. Frankly, there is no inherent value to a click. A click doesn't actually make you any money. It is always served as a proxy for a potential action. And the legacy thought process here was, well, people can't find out more about my company if they're not on my website. No one else is going to be telling the story. I have to get them to my site to give them the information to convince them to convert, and then I need to convert them on site, right? It's the whole sort of the core construct of CRO often is the how do I get them to convert after the click? But we use those clicks to say, hey, are things looking good or bad? It's like a pre-forecast. It's not a great pre-forecast. In fact, it's a terrible pre-forecast in this area. And I think that's where this conversation does begin, is to understand why these legacy metrics won't work in order to invest in these forward-looking metrics. I think of this as somewhat akin to, like, if you're having programmatic conversations, oftentimes a lot of folks will go, oh, $100 CPM, that's too much for me. And I'm like, I don't know how much too much of it, I don't know how expensive a CPM should be. It could be $1,000. If every single person that this ad is reaching is a millionaire with $100,000 to spend right now, I absolutely want to do that. But, or $5 could be too much if it's going out to a terrible audience that has no interest in what I'm doing. The point is, it is not a great proxy, and I think that is where we need to start those conversations within the C-suite. But it's a really good question as we think about influencing those leaders and organizations. Jen, I got one more for you, then I think we'll jump over to Michelle here as well. But the question is, and this is really about in the commerce ecosystem, and that is, which is the most important, the PDP, the product detail page information, or the direct-to-consumer web store? On the direct-to-consumer web store, or the PDP information on the Amazon PDP. So if you had to pick one, do you optimize your own website product information, or do you optimize Amazon? And obviously, maybe make an assumption that, like, you're selling on both, I guess, or maybe what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think, well, we see Amazon with like varying roles inside of the topic ecosystems that we've been auditing. So I think that's number one. What is showing up more frequently? What does it like to suggest? And maybe starting to understand why. Is it Amazon? Is it, if it's not you, is it competitors who are direct selling off of their own websites? But I think ultimately it's your PDP page on your own website. You have a lot of opportunity there to just create more value and more information about the product itself, about how it's related to your other products, about making you a topical authority to a degree, right? Because you sell this product, what does that mean? Internal linking still really relevant for LLM. So how are you including that in other places in your website or in other content offsite? I don't think Amazon is not important, but I think ultimately you really want to focus on what's happening within the environment you can control and be the owner of information. We have not talked about necessarily like agents going and visiting websites and starting to interact with them. So I did test that out with Find Me a face wash and a moisturizer. It took 11 minutes to put in my cart. It was very long and very painful. And it's not great yet, but it did go to the retailer's website to get some information, and then it started to go out to find out where to purchase from. So I think it's different depending on the industry you're in. You just have to figure out what's being weighted.
Yeah, and to that point, it's also different on the LLM that you're looking to optimize with them, because I think one of the things that we've seen too is not to say that there's a degree of collusion, but the reality is that Amazon does have an investment in Perplexity, and Perplexity very often surfaces Amazon results. What I would say though is, there is a world beyond Amazon here as well. And I think Walmart today reported some really great earnings, and what they're talking about in terms of the growth of commerce there is this inherent worldview of like, look, you'll be making, I hope this is a false dichotomy, frankly, because I think you need to do both. I don't think you can afford to do one or the other, but in this scenario, it's very important to ensure that holistically your presence is there. And to your point, monitoring what URLs or what citations are coming up for your brand, which domain they're coming from. All right, this one is for Michelle, and that is about CopyTiger. Does CopyTiger automatically swap in new copy for low-performing assets?
No is the short answer to that one. The idea here is what I was referring to earlier. We still have value as human beings and as the people who can basically make the decision about this ad that the LLM created for me, is it truly relevant? Is it truly on brand? Despite all the inputs we feed it with brand guideline documentation and with former ads, the LLMs are not perfect. We still want to make sure that there's always a human in the loop review process. So the way that Copy Tiger will work will be the LLM, the Copy Tiger product will create the ads, and there will be a review process. Once that review process is done by both Tinuiti as well as the advertiser, the brand themselves, we can then send it into Google in a paused state. So the ad can ultimately be enabled. But again, human in the loop, making sure that nothing is just, we're not turning over all the keys to the robots.
Absolutely. I think this is, whenever I hear Mark Zuckerberg, I know we're talking in the meta ecosystem, whenever they talk about fully agentic advertising capability, when they talk about we'll handle the full creative cycle, you just tell us how much you want to pay for a meaningful action. I think where this gets lost immediately is when I speak with the CMOs of large brands and they go, I'm not giving them that difference. I'm not going to allow my brand to be, I have to sign off on how our brand is represented. This is something that we've cultivated over decades. And I think even things as small as the copy in an ad that you would see on Google absolutely does represent your brand. It takes only one ad experience to break the perception, especially if you're like a high quality, like the definition of success type of brand, like those especially, I think they're going to be really honed in on this. What I think is interesting though, and where we're going with this, is a state where we will have propensity scoring as part of this. So this is where we would encourage you as a human in the loop to go, oh, I have bias. I have bias in the way that I think about ads and the way that I think about my brand. And frankly, I have a bias toward a very small section, but not everyone searches like me or not everyone reacts like me. And if there's an ad that we think has high propensity to perform, you should include that. And this is where we are going to be bringing that score to life. So that is coming out in Bliss Point in the end of September. So it's going to be ready for Q4 for all Tinuiti advertisers. And so this will be something that your teams on the paid search side of the house will be working with you on. We had, I'm going to jump down to this other one about Reddit. And that is, we're hearing that it matters, but how important do you feel Reddit is for businesses in the new landscape?
I think, well, I'll go back to like what I've been saying a little bit is how relevant is it within your topic ecosystem? But generally, yes, we are seeing Reddit become more relevant. We know a couple things. We know that OpenAI and Google both have a partnership with Reddit. That was from a little over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now. So they aren't really alluding to what that means, but we know that it exists. We also know that these LLMs are really looking for that clear, here is a question, here is an answer format, and Reddit and YouTube, frankly, are both really great places to pull that from. I would say the traditional side, we have seen Reddit start to get included more and more frequently inside of SERP. It started to take up that space like right below ads pretty much, was about a year ago, I think. Pretty soon after that partnership was announced, coincidentally. So I think it's important to know what's going on there. I think having a Reddit strategy, if your brand will allow for it, I know it's kind of a dangerous space to play, is also a really great way to do what Simon was talking about earlier of owning your narrative. So showing up in those spaces and holding an AMA, knowing what's happening inside of your subreddit, owning your subreddit, maybe trying to promote conversation, whether it's about your brand or a topic. I've seen some really great use cases for agencies who are potentially in like the local SEO space, and they create a subreddit that is now the forum for local SEO, and it's all owned by an agency. So how can you create topical authority in those platforms? But yeah, I think yeah, it's relevant, absolutely, and it's UGC, and you just got to figure out what your brand narrative is there.
Absolutely. It's not even just about your brand. It's also about the weights and biases of an industry. So you don't even have to be talking about your brand, especially if you're on the small side. You just got to be involved in those community threads with like, I'm buying a new microwave. What should I think about? And have those conversations out in the open as to, what you think makes the most sense, and be somewhat of a citizen digital science, a digital marketer, we'll call it. There are still more questions. I apologize that we won't have time to get to them. Thank you both to Jen and Michelle for being such wonderful presenters today. It is very much appreciated. And Catherine, I'll pass over back to you.
Just echoing Simon, big thanks to Simon, Jen, and Michelle for sharing these insights today. Huge shout out to our audience. I feel like there was so much interaction in the chat. Thank you for the questions. We always appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and drop this in the bottom of the page for everyone. This is going to take you to our AI SEO page where you can find more resources. You can also connect with us there for additional info. So just click the link that I launched in the bottom left. And thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thanks for sticking with us. Bye, y'all.